We'll do some quick introductions. My name is Alyssa. I've been, sorry, I was trying to say, there's more people that I recognize that look like they're either lost or, I can't tell if they're lost or looking party. Anyways, my name is Alyssa. I've been playing Ultimate mostly in the Seattle area since 2000. And something that in the last 6 to 8 years, something that has been really important to me is kind of transitioning out of playing. I've been coaching for about that same amount of time, is really trying to work on having more other people develop as coaches. Like, that's something that has been really important to me. And I got my master's degree at UW in Intercollegiate Athletic Leadership. And it really inspired me to continue to try to figure out ways to share a lot of the stuff that I learned there, and then also just other experience, so that no one else has to necessarily go into debt learning what I did. So you guys get to do it for free. Luckily, because now Disc Northwest is able to host a lot of these things for free or by donation, which has been really awesome. We'll just go around and introduce people's names, so you can say your name and pronouns, and just if you're coaching, where you're coaching at, and if you're not coaching, where you most recently played or most recently coached. Right now, the only team I'm coaching right now is Western Washington University. And I use she, they pronouns.
Here, Ian, coaching Eastside, Ultimate Social Team, middle school, high school.
I'm Mike, him, Peter, coach Eastside Ultimate, the independent ultimate program for Eastside kids. I'm also coaching this season Russell Island Mixed High School, and I coach middle school at Forest Ridge.
Name's Sal, he, him, pronouns. I'm not currently coaching, most recently coached in Nashville, where I used to live, middle school boys team.
Serene, she, her pronouns. I haven't coached in a while, but I'll be captaining, so cool.
Shanana, she, her. I'm helping at Valley High School, and then might potentially help with a club team I coached last summer. Also.
My name is Veronica, she, her. I'm coaching Jalen in 7th grade.
Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a first-time coach at McDonald Elementary.
Nice to meet you, Matt. I'm Jimmy Chu, and I coach on the east side at the little school to elementary school, and then I'm also coaching some middle school GX players this winter.
My name is Jack. I coach for the Mini middle school team, and I currently play for the Purple Haze high school team.
My name is Bob. I'm coaching various elementary and middle school teams, or after-school teams in Tacoma, but I've also been asked by the local club team, mixed club team, to maybe help them this year as well.
Robin, she, her, I'm currently going to be coaching the spring team for Motion Madison middle school students. Coached there a few years now, and also Genesee Elementary.
Kevin, he, him. I'm the captain for Make It Rain. I'm coach, so I'm kind of taking that role. Coached by committee with our captains.
Awesome. And what's your name?
Hi, sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Margaret.
Margaret?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we will, while I'm getting this set up, y'all can share your names and your pronouns and who you either coach or play for while you're sitting down. Everyone else has already introduced themselves, so you're on the spot.
Great. Me, if they them. I don't currently coach, but I work at Disc Northwest.
Josiah, he, him. I coach for PLU Red.
Sweet. Thank you. Okay. Something that I think I have not utilized as much as probably some people are is film. I know a lot of people are doing a lot more things with film. It's just so much more accessible than it used to be. For me, like, film was really not something that was very accessible at all. We even had, there was years of having someone who filmed every single one of our games when I was on Riot, but the film quality was like so terrible, and it was just really even hard to do anything with. And someone was like specializing in being able to do this. And then later on, we had someone else who was he was a husband of a player, so I think that's why he volunteered so much of his time. Filmed like our practices in our games, and I feel like we were able to really create a lot more systems and drills and practice plans around what we're actually seeing. I think sometimes when you ask players like how things are feeling, I think that's also good information, and I think it's good to pair both of those things together. But sometimes how it can feel really hard or bad, and sometimes it still actually is fine. And sometimes it can feel really easy, but it's not really, it's hard to really understand why. Like, why did it feel so easy to just be able to like throw a few passes and just score? I'm also someone who, I don't have a list of drills. Every single season that I coach, I create drills and practice plans based on the information and the people that I have in front of me. So I know that other people have gone to some of my other sessions with coaching training, and yeah, I unfortunately don't have a magic list of drills, but I'm trying to give people more of the resources to be able to create your own drills. You'll actually connect what you want to see on the field and how does that actually connect to your practice plans. One of my absolute pet peeves is running drills for the sake of drills that have actually nothing to do with what you want to see on the field. If your team runs vertical stack and for whatever reason they're doing horizontal type cuts, unless you're working on defense, but that's a different thing. Or just drills for the sake of drills, like ones that people have done for 100 years, is a box drill. Unless you have a really good reason of why are they cutting in the middle and cutting the side and cutting in the middle and cutting the side? Do we ever do that in a game? Maybe, but unless we're doing that in a game, I feel like trying to figure out how to actually put those pieces together. Great. 1 second. Okay, we're gonna watch a clip. And I'm sorry. This is an old game. I've watched this game a bunch of times. So it was the easiest game for me to use for something like this because I think, and if everyone has kind of favorite games, I think this game has really great examples of person, zone, defense, offense, all sorts of stuff. And also the swings of a game. There's Fury takes the lead, then Riot takes the lead, then Fury takes the lead, then Riot takes the lead, and it ends in a double game point. So it's just also an emotional, following the track of the players the whole game. So I picked this game mostly because I've watched this game more than any other game. So sorry that I don't know. I feel a little silly because some of the things happening in it. It's not. This is happens to be the game that I watch the most, but we're just gonna move on with that. Okay, so we're going to watch this clip, and the idea is to watch. We're gonna watch Riot, which you can't see on the team, the red team, and I want you to really think about the person offense, and I want you to see if you can. We're gonna watch it a couple times. So the first time I watch the clip is I want to watch to see if I can see the whole shape of the offense, and we really are gonna try to see what it looks like, looking at the whole shape, and then we're going to try to see if we can track some individual players and seeing what they're doing. So we're going to watch it once, and we're going to think about the offense as a full system. Okay.
Many of her
No, sorry, we're not going to listen to the audio. Okay. can kind of see what's happening. It will zoom out a little bit better. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to see, but like that was like, you know, it was about a 5 pass score. So you're like, okay, how can we replicate that? Because that seems fairly easy, and I feel like it can be like, maybe it was just luck, but instead of that, like trying to like break it down. So I think when we watch again, now I want us to try to think about like, Julia was the person who threw that puck. Where did she come from, and like, what was she doing to be able to like get open and be able to like throw that throw? So we're gonna back it up again. And Julia's number 27. And it's hard to see the numbers, but we'll be able to do that. Okay, see Julia's in front of the stack. She's moving with the play. And if we pause right there, I'm the other person behind. I was about to cut into that space, but then I saw Julia was more open than I was. So I stopped my cut to then like let her be able to have that space. Okay, so now what I would like people to do is, in like small groups, I want you to come up with, I want us to practice like now coming up with a drill. Like how would we be able to do that in something that actually is going to replicate if that we want to be able to do this. So you're going to spend like 4 minutes in groups of 2 or 3, and I want you to practice trying to figure this out. And then we're going to like see how many, and we're going to see if you have different ideas or if they're all the same. Okay? Ready, set, go. You have 4 minutes with a partner or 2 other friends coming up with an idea of how to replicate this.
Run away.
I feel like I got it.
Good, how are you? Peter.
That'll be a different level. I already know how to play.
That'd be really fun. You might listen to it.
Yeah. And they'll be able to do it
I didn't see it the first time.
Hard to tell if
That's
I can't tell.
A little bit. Nice play. How would be effective right now? You want to be always come out and draw?
Yeah, please.
So I kind of drew it out in my notebook too. The numbers are like with the rotation of the drill. It's a lateral cut, receiving this sort of bump row here. and then you're trying to shoot to this space out here. So there's like this over here, you got the cutter set up, trying to time their cut with about the catch of this throw, so that way you're not too far out for the shot. I would rotate it with thrower hits the disc, shoots, becomes the bump, then rotates to the cutting line.
Okay. Sweet, thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to maybe something different that they would do? Yeah, or Peter and then Zach, you have something that's the third different one?
So, like, philosophically, I don't like drills that much.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about like a constrained game.
Yeah.
Where it's like 3v3 opposed, where, you know, you can set up however they want, but the game is like O has 3 or 4 passes to score. So they've got to figure out how do I get open, how do I get that cut in, and then it's applied in a game situation. Hopefully.
For sure, yeah. I like drills to turn into kind of game scenarios pretty quickly. Zach, do you have another idea?
Sure. I really like what you said, by the way. That's really cool. I think I would find a way to sort of replicate this action, kind of have the initial, I guess I'll write 1, sort of the person with the disc, and then create kind of like a 4-on-4. So O is offense, X is defense. And so you're simulating this person getting the initiative first, because this looks like a thrower or a handler creating motion or creating an option for a downfield receiver. So give this person the option to either get open sort of in this upline way that Julia is able to create. And then if this is able to happen, give this person the ability to sort of create for themselves downfield. Or if this turns into sort of a backfield cut, give them the opportunity to create on this side of the field, to sort of replicate this motion in real time with a defender.
Does anyone else have anything else that they saw in there? Something that actually we were talking about is the shape. So Dom is the person who caught the goal. And I think when we were looking at this, I'm looking at like, wait, people love to run deep to the end zone. People love to throw deep, and that's also where a lot of people throw turnovers and or throw defenders. And when I see this, I'm like, okay, yes, like Julia was able to kind of go up line. That's like a fairly easy pass. But like, why was Dom open the way that she was? It's really hard to see in the film, what we were talking about in this group, is you can see Dom's defender in the corner here. And so you can kind of put some things together to understand what actually Dom's cut shape was, which is maybe why she was open. And I'm sorry, and I'm not saying this because I think anyone else is wrong. This is just like something else that I noticed that hadn't got brought up yet. Dom's defender, as you can see right here, Dom's defender is wearing these yellow cleats. And so you can see, oops, wrong way, sorry. You can see when Shira's the one who throws it to Julia. So here you can see in the corner right here in a second, you can see yellow cleats. So that means like Dom probably, I would guess, ran in on the same side that the disc was. So Shira was here, Julia was here, and then yellow cleats was here. So we assume that Dom probably made an undercut there, even though we can't really see it on the film. And because we were running a vertical stack, Dom probably came from the back, cut in here for Shira, but then because we're in this like kind of same spot, instead of Dom just coming straight out this way, because we can see at the very end that she does catch the disc in the middle of the field. So she must have done something to go here and then come into the middle of the field, that when Julia then got it, Julia had all of this space to throw into. So I feel like that is kind of an example of like, you can watch a clip and you can like kind of, once you watch it multiple times, you kind of start picking out different things. And so a lot of the time I then I start with like looking at the whole big picture. Okay, we scored, great. But like, how can we possibly do that again? And I think then breaking down specific pieces. Like and then I think about the shape of Dom's cut. I also, and not in this circumstance, but sometimes it'd be like maybe what move did the handler make to get open in the first place? And really trying to break that down. And I think a lot about when I'm working with athletes, even experienced athletes, of like, what are we doing with our feet, knees, hips, shoulders, eyes, all the way up. And then once we understand all those different parts, then we can start thinking about how we interact with other people. I know when I was younger in high school, I played middle school and high school, no one taught me how to move. And I still don't have great running form or anything, but I tore my ACL in 2013 and I took that opportunity to like relearn how to do all of these things because no one ever really taught me exactly how to do all those things. And I think it's starting to change, but I think often as coaches and captains and players, we kind of are not necessarily thinking of those things as much. We're like really thinking about the skills, and so we're missing the opportunity to understand like how can we also move our body to create this, like how do we throw this throw, how do we get open, how do we create that space when we cut.
So if you were to use video to help do that, is that like taking the clips that are on the web, like of various people doing various cuts and saying, look at this. Is there analysis? Do you recommend like taking pictures or videos of your players and saying, hey, how's this look? Compare? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes it depends on your group, but I do think that after people watch themselves a few times, people get less shy about it, or people are only looking at themselves. So sometimes, like the first time I show film, I pick film that nobody is in it, so no one's just watching themselves. And I find some game that I've used this game a bunch of times, and at this point, most of these people aren't playing anymore, so it's really just like not. There's not as many connections as there is like when you're watching like a new game. But even like I was helping coach Brute Squad this year, and there was a drill where we were working on just how to throw pucks and just like work on like what are we doing with our feet and our hips and our arm and our head, and what's happening with the curve of the disc when we like change our wrist shape. And I had them, I wasn't at that practice, and I had them film, and then I was able to break down each of their throwing motions with conversations with each of them individually, breaking down their throwing form. I do not recommend doing that mid to late season. That's like an early season, first half season thing to do. And I also think that it probably also depends on the level of people that you're working with. Like I would probably wouldn't do that with third graders. But you can decide if your third graders can handle that. Are there any other thoughts or questions? Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the play you talked about where there was somebody kind of down in the end zone and they came back, create space for the runner. Yeah. Is that something that fifth graders even could get their minds around?
So I guess maybe you can talk, there's other people in this room that have much more experience coaching elementary school than I do. I've only really coached elementary school at summer camps.
Okay.
But I think generally, the younger groups of people, I would love if they spent more time like understanding how to move their body and like what space is, than like everybody's standing in a stack. That's like my personal opinion as someone who's then coaching Seattle kids in college who've been playing since they were 8, and now I'm coaching them in college, and I'm like, we're gonna have to do a bunch of work to like relearn how to move because or like open their minds to different systems. Like they'll come to me in college and be like, this is the one way we play. And I'm like, it isn't. And also I changed my mind about like strategy on like offensive systems and defensive systems many times over the years. Like I've been coaching Western since 2011, and I have changed my mind on a lot of different things, but there's still some like form stuff that I'm having to like untrain. Kids from any city but I think there's just a lot of Seattle kids coming through. Great. So, yeah, we'll watch another clip, and then we talk about also creating a practice plan. Okay, let's go to the next thing here. Okay. Okay, this time is Rise on defense, and I want us to think about watching the team defense, and then we're gonna watch the clip again, and we're gonna try to pick one person. But I think this is a good example of just pressure defense, and I think sometimes that concept can get lost on people if you're not actually the one to get a block. That we don't necessarily always see the benefit of a whole team playing pressure type person, aware of other people in defense. So we will watch. That's boring. Okay, so did Serge, the person guarding that person who got thrown to, did she get a block? No, right? And that was probably that was about the 12th row of that offensive possession. And I think there are a lot of, when we're coaching person defense, I think a lot of mindset is just really focused on that block. And I feel like there's a lot of work that can be done to start with just the endurance it takes to be able to play defense for, that was about a minute and a half, and it sometimes doesn't feel like that long, where we want to play a minute and a half of really hard defense, but playing a minute and a half of really hard defense can result in just a pressure turnover. So we're gonna watch the clip once. This one is a little bit better where we can see some individuals. So this time I want us to pick one person to kind of try to see if you can follow for the longest you can. I think Serge, who is number 6, that's guarding Alex Snyder, who's the person who gets overthrown, is probably the easiest one of that is to watch, and I feel like she's a good example of sometimes giving a buffer, sometimes not giving a buffer, repositioning, having her eyes up, looking around, and I think there's a lot of pieces that, if you don't know who to watch, I would watch number 6. And so there's number 6 on the mark. touched it 6 times, that's 50%, but she was then also still involved in the turnover. So I think thinking about if we wanted to create a practice that was about like person, pressure, defense, we're gonna now have another thing where we're gonna talk to each other and we're gonna like attempt to try to like break it down for as many of the smallest pieces we can. So in a group now, I want you to make a list of all the parts of this system. Like this is a multifaceted, lots of things going on in the system, lots of people. What are all the pieces that have happened with all 7 players that have like created successful defense? And I would say any defense that creates a turn or even a lot of passes is successful defense. Defense is hard. Offense is at the advantage in this sport. So, are there any questions about what I want you to do with like either 2 or 3 people? Okay, great. I'll give you another like, just 4 minutes to kind of like make a list of what are all the pieces from our feet to our eyes to our teammates, what are all the different parts to be able to create, to be able to play successful team pressure defense. Okay, go ahead.
Position yourself.
Yeah, just the way that trust it.
Knows you out. Each time.
That's basically what you space and they're all like if nobody got time
I've been trying to work on it.
you can see marks on sweeping trying to
Watching their games, back where they're trying to get my hips in the same position.
so like they would try to take it all like if you're you can just get sealed away. You're taking a step back to not get sealed away.
Against better players, so we want to go here.
Coaching clinic this summer.
I don't have
Especially common if you're not.
Okay, what are some of our things? What are some of the things on our list? Yeah.
Swat it away.
What are some of the pieces that make up some of these things?
We were thinking how Mark was pretty flat. I don't know if it was actually flat, but checking over the shoulder a lot.
Like straight up or like the shape?
Straight, like just directly in front of the thrower.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't really forcing flicker back in, or if it was very loose kind of shape. But so whenever people were going to cover the throws, they would look behind to see if there was any threat. So if they go bigger and from their one throw, they were still checking behind their shoulder to see where's the cut coming from next. Do I need to move to the right and left slightly?
Yeah, marking and paying attention to what is like working in that. If we're gonna take marking and we're gonna break it down into like smaller pieces, what would be like a smaller, what would be like the neck, if marking, I feel like marking seems like it could be a small piece, but I really feel like we could probably make a whole practice just marking. So what are the pieces that we're gonna like work on to get better at marking, to maybe either just thinking about the shape that we're marking at, or the force, or looking behind us. And I think all those things are like pieces that you're talking about, that you mentioned, and I think we often try to do all of them really fast all at once. And we don't have to spend a ton of time on like checking over our shoulder, thinking about our shape, thinking about like how we're moving. But I think like making sure that we understand that marking in itself is not just, I think, a simple task to be really excellent at marking. So when I think about like, a big piece of that was the mark. When I then come up with like trying to create a practice plan, I like think about what are the parts to marking, and I might start with feet or moving on, or like moving up the body, and then behind me and my eyes. And then trying to figure out like what is the whole piece? Is it straight into scrimmaging? Is it a game? Is it like a stop disc rep? Like I think trying to understand a progression that ends up making sense for your group. And I think depending on your age group that you're working with, I think it can change how the progression works. But I think trying to figure out ways to start at something simple and making things more complex is like really important. What other pieces did we see in that clip that would make up like playing full team defense? Yeah.
There was a lot of, it seemed like the philosophy was just making every throw very difficult. Things like off disc defenders staying very tight. It felt like there were some coaches where like somebody could look, see a threat and try to stop that threat before it happened. But just trying to suffocate the offense by making every throw difficult.
Yeah, and I was thinking that's like being able to be tight on defense is I think a pretty big part also. Yeah. So like, and then there's a number of parts that we're like breaking that down to like the smallest parts. I think once again, you could probably write a whole practice if you wanted, like just playing tight person defense, understanding the angles that you're taking, understanding your positioning, understanding like where you're looking, and trying to anticipate. Because there was a few people that also stopped some throws by like jumping the lane or sticking their arm out. Or there was at least one switch. There might have been some other ones. Are there any other pieces that we noticed? Yeah.
Talking about like how everyone sat as well, like there be some kind of breaky things, and you see everyone's moved to like the spot as a team to kind of defend, and then you see it like kind of take back up again. So it looks like it's about to like, oh, that's a score, and then everyone kind of like, well, it wasn't a score, and then it takes, you're like, oh, got another shot at it.
And I think that's what poaching in the lanes is like a super huge part that I think a lot of times it ends up being a little bit, it can become like more like lazy, like I'm helping. But I think that like spring back, right? We're like in the lane and then we're like coming back to our person. Or we're looking around and then we're like coming back to our person. And I think there are like a lot of pieces that make up being able to be really excellent at that. And I think some of these things are like a little bit more advanced, but I do think there are some things within some of these things that you could be working with younger kids also, like especially with defense. And I think defense is also really, if you're working with beginners of any age, I think defense is a really great way to feel successful. And sometimes offensive space can be challenging to see. Great. Are there any other parts that we noticed? Yeah.
I don't know if you were purposely doing it, but it seemed like you were forcing under and trying to just not let any just as many short or under throws as they could make. That way, the emphasis was not
Yeah, because I mean it was tight defense, but Fury was able to get multiple passes under. So I think that's another thing you can notice. Like, okay, it was like more like back pocket backing defense. It wasn't just fronting. And that's like a game, and that's like a game adjustment. Being able to switch back and forth between those things, or like starting a game or a scrimmage where you're all fronting and being able to adjust to all backing, or like understanding the like powers of those different positions. And then also once you get closer to the end zone, how are you then going to change your angle of like how you are positioning around your person. So I think positioning is a huge piece of really good pressure defense. Are there any other parts or pieces that people noticed from that clip? Yeah.
Surge was staying very low and allowing her to change directions to keep up with Surge's marking.
Yeah, totally. And that's another, like, Surge is like always ready.
Yeah.
Like, you're never gonna see Surge like standing straight up on the field like looking around. And I think a lot of other people too, like you've seen people like down ready to like go do their job, whatever the next thing is. So it's like another piece. And I think you can like, I feel like there's probably like close to endless ways that you can continue to break down pieces. Yeah, do you have something? Yeah.
I don't know, do you want to move on?
Yeah, go for it.
Keep going? Like
What?
dig deeper?
Yeah, let's dig deeper, something else.
I predict that Riot had an idea of who each of their defenders was going to match up.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't always think about that. That is a higher level. But when you have a matchup that works well, it's going to be at your advantage.
Totally, and this was actually the first point that Surge guarded Alex. We had a couple other matchups, and Surge is kind of the whole idea was actually not to put Surge on Alex the first quarter. Like the whole idea was to put Surge on Alex like right at that like second quarter line. So that's like bigger game strategy, but you might not put your best defender on the other person's best handler possibly right at the beginning of the game, unless you strategically think that is like gonna be the best. Like I've coached against teams where like if we can get the handler to make one mistake, they've like fallen off a cliff. So like at the beginning of the game, I play super tight, get someone to be on them the whole time, and then once they've done that one mistake, I get someone who's gonna be ready to be poachy, like big kind of slower mark, like I'll change matchups based on the personnel. And like, depending on what division you're working with, that's gonna be changing, but a lot of times these same kids, when they're 8, are also gonna be continuing to play against the same people, or in club. Like some of the people like on Fury, some of the people I played against for over 10 years. And so like you also develop those different kinds of matchups. And they try to do the same thing. They put later on, they put like one of their best athletic, tall defenders on me, and she actually, and the same thing is, I know she's more athletic and taller than me, so I also played my position differently. Where like at one point she got a layup block on me, but I knew it was gonna happen, and I was just really hoping that it would pop up or something would change, and it did. So instead of like going really hard for it, it popped up and I was able to catch it. Because I just know I'm like honest with my athletic abilities compared to my defender, and like knowing those pieces and like teaching players to understand their opponents and themselves can also be a really powerful tool. And that's, I don't know, and especially for me, like as someone who like, my career revolved more on me being a really good thrower, not a really excellent athlete. I had to really learn how I was going to get open, how I was going to create space, and change how I'm going to play when I'm playing against people who are faster, taller, and can jump higher than me. And I think I really try to instill that in all players. All players at all levels and all athletic abilities can take the time to learn their opponents, and it also starts with learning your teammates. And you can do that at practice too. And it's like, I think sometimes friends like to guard each other over and over and over again, but sometimes really making sure that everybody has an opportunity to learn everyone on their team, and not just like we always guard each other, because it's like we have fun and we get better, but then everyone else doesn't necessarily get that opportunity to learn how we play. Are there any other pieces that people have thought of or noticed?
I was just saying communication, hear it, but I'm sure the sideline is talking, and I'm sure on the field was talking, because there were adjustments being made, things that were.
Totally, communication, like, Riot had, and not, a lot of things like, you have hand signals set every single time on the line. People are putting their hand signal between the sideline knows what the defense is, and everyone knows how to communicate to each other. We also learned that when you're on a team, like, some people like different kinds of communication, or learn hearing different people's voices better. So like, as you get more complex and like really understanding your team's strengths, like, you might have some people that are just really good at talking to the mark, but maybe they're not really good at talking to a cutter defender. And like, try to encourage the people who are really talented at that different kinds of sideline talk to be able to do that, and not necessarily feel like you have to be good at all of it all the time. Any other pieces? Okay, excellent. Let's see. We're gonna watch one more clip. Okay, and this is double game point, and I really want you to like look at the offense. Just chit chat. Fury also does hand signals. You can see that like she's doing this. It's like telling her teammates, making sure everyone knows what's happening. Okay, so we're gonna talk in your groups. If you wanted, like, when you're thinking about double game point offense, like, physically it can be challenging. It's the end of the game. Mentally it can be challenging because I don't know. Even though I think every single point is important. We'll put a lot more emphasis on that last point. That's the point that you remember the most. Of like, if you got scored on or if you do that turnover. If you wanted to practice your offense in like a double game point mindset, what are some ways that would be able to replicate that? What would be ways that would be able to replicate that? So I want you to talk in your groups again and think about that. If we were going to try to make this be able to be a replicable thing, how do we do it?
The pressure situation.
Pressure, clean offense. Like there was, I feel like also, like it was like, I think that was probably the best version of like when we think about our plan A offense. That probably was like what it was supposed to look like. Did we run that the whole game? No. But I think all of it, like the pressure situation, and then also like how are we also going to? I mean, I think that's connected, right? Like how are we going to play our system when it really matters, instead of just like hitting the disc and punching and hoping. Okay. Yes, yes, no, watch it again. Okay, yeah, why is this successful? Why is this like, what happened? Did it equal a score? Kind of thinking about what everybody is doing. What is everybody doing?
Oh yeah, strategy. I talked a lot about my Yeah, exactly. That's how I was.
Okay, let's pause for that. Okay, what are some parts to being able to make something like this replicable? Yeah.
We were just having a conversation about this. I'll preface by saying that I coach adult club. This may not be translatable for elementary school or middle school, for example. But setting up a logistical scrimmage where there's 7 players on offense, 7 players on defense, and it's a game to 3 for the offense, but it's a game to 1 for the defense. So the offense has to execute at a high level, and if at any point the defense is able to score in the game to 3, if they score once, the scrimmage is over. So that inherently is a higher pressure situation, but you may have to be creative in figuring out what happens next after the scrimmage. If losing a scrimmage isn't incentive enough for the players, whether it's conditioning or I found success with highly competitive people, you know, the 7 people who lose the scrimmage are not allowed to participate in the next scrimmage, and that drives a lot of competitive people pretty wild. So finding, you know, that's a logistical thought that came to mind.
I think something like that game, it can be age appropriate. I think what you do next, I think has to be age appropriate.
100%.
Yeah. But I think that idea, like defense, you pull until either the other team gets to 3 or your team can score once. I think that is something that can be age appropriate. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
We talked about a practice plan. Like,
The two, like, if I were to like distill it down to two things for double game point, is that you're tired from playing a full game, and that there's a lot of pressure. You really have to execute. So a practice plan where you start out with a lot of conditioning, ladder drills, chase sprints, whatever conditioning you want to do for the practice, and then you set up the scrimmage as a clean hold / clean break. Offense, if you turn it, you can't get it back. Defense, you get one shot to have a clean break. And then if neither team can do that, there's no points awarded, just on to the next.
Yeah.
Game of 3 like that.
For sure. What else? Yeah.
Two things come to mind are based on how often when a team is in this situation, they are calling like an interesting line that is a mix of players from maybe who normally play O-line or D-line or don't want to play together. So having a very clear understanding of the team's offense across everyone so that everyone knows what to expect. And then also figuring out ways over the course of the season to make sure everyone feels like whether they are called on that line or not, they are a part of that point. Because that's like we've talked before about like communication from the sideline and all these things are super important for like the whole course of the game. That includes this point. And instead of people being bummed and kind of checked out because they weren't called on it. So maybe at practice getting like your job is to cheer super loud. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think something that I was working on with Ruth this year was exactly this, because there was some really big tension with mixed lines the previous year. People had a lot of feelings about it. That they didn't get to practice it, that they were upset that they weren't on it, the people that we called were wrong, whatever it was. So one way that we did that was like in a scrimmage randomly without them knowing when I was gonna call a random line. I just called one line of 7 people and then everybody else was against them. They were like on the other team. So it was just like the dark team versus the 7 other players. And it would just be like kind of a bonus point, like we were playing a game of 3. We played at one point, you go back to wherever you were. But I was keeping tracks of which combinations of people scored or got a break. Both of them. So we did it for double game point like O and D. And we also gave everybody an opportunity to be in that line. From regionals to nationals, everybody got to be in those situations at least a couple times and with different combinations of people. So I think that also I think helps with buy-in, where like every single person got an opportunity to be in that. And also understood that if they were like more likely going to be on O or defense or specific matchups or specific teams that we're playing against, that also might change who we have. Like when we're talking about Fury, Riot, and Fury have played each other a ton of times, and at this point, a lot of those people have also played against each other through college and club. Like Carolyn Finney was the one guarding me. I've been playing against her at this point for like 15 years. Like I know exactly what type of player she is, and I know she's gonna try to get a block by poaching off of me. And so like, do I like yell poach and panic and stress? Or do I like just like try to read the situation and like relax, understanding the other team? But also, yeah, giving every single person on your team opportunity, I think, is like a huge buy-in thing. And there's probably other good ways. That was one way that, with very little data seemed successful. Any other parts that we thought about? Yes.
One thing that we would do is we had an issue where people would talk a lot.
Yeah.
Too much, to double coverage, to cut that wasn't good, and that happens a lot in the first point.
Yeah.
People get stressed and they're like, I just want to get out of this, and this is the way to do it. So we set up a 7v8, and it would be like a 5-pole situation. So somebody would pull the disc, and the defender would stick in the deep space. The extra defender would just stay in the deep space, and on the turn would get off the field.
Yeah.
And that way, if you're going to throw a huck, it's either going to get deep or it better be a great huck,
Yeah,
because there's already a defender back there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having like stipulated logistical, whatever you want to call them, scrimmages is something that I've used a lot, where I will just let people play whatever, but one of my, like I'll do a drill, and then I'll do some kind of stipulated scrimmage that has like some kind of reward system built in before I then like just scrimmage, because often we do these great drills, it looks really great, and then we just scrimmage and everyone does whatever they want, which is, I think there's moments for that, but I think there's also moments to like kind of create rewards, and I try to say this, like rewards for doing what we talked about, not punishments for doing the opposite. Did you have something else to add?
Yeah, super clean point, super well played. And it reminds me of practice, probably one of the most impactful practices I've ever been a part of, which was led by a coach who was going to be at the next session, Ben Wiggins. The point of the practice, or the focus of that practice, he said, is if you ever are going to move, your first 3 steps have to be your fastest. Hard, fast steps. And if that's cutting, if that's clearing, it's got to be 3 steps as hard as you can. And when I was watching that, you could see that those players who were trying to get open were cutting their hardest. But what you also saw was the moment a player threw the disc and was likely to be out of the next play, they were running their hardest to get out of space and into a new space, and it helped the flow tremendously. And you have to build that in to your mind, because when this point needs it, you have to have that built in. So you got to sometimes devote a practice to 3 hard steps anytime you move, and you will get to this point where you do it and it helps end the point.
Yeah, for sure. Any other parts or pieces that people noticed? The last thing I was going to say, we kind of talked about it for a minute, is also the defense. Practice playing defense still a game point, and we even like Zach kind of brought that up also. But I would say this was not like Fury's probably the best defensive point, because they honestly looked scared to me. Like, people look tired, people look scared. Like, am I gonna make a mistake? Am I gonna be the one who gets scored on? And I feel like that's like, we were talking about like almost every underpass was open. Like the handler space was pretty, like we could make 3 hard steps and just be open. Like very few of the passes were contested, and I think that's like something that like, how can you work with your team and yourself to be able to be brave enough to play like your tightest, hardest defense even at the end, knowing that you might still get scored on, and be willing to like, yeah, like I said before, when you get scored on the last point, that's the one you remember, even though there was 15 other points or 14 other points before that. And I often talk about that a lot when I'm talking about playing fronting defense. Like, you probably will get scored on at some point, but are you going to be brave enough to like do your team job, to be able to play team defense and not be like worried that like you might get scored on? Because your team might get scored on regardless, so you might as well go all in and just see what happens. Okay, awesome. Are there any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
Question. So I think this session, I guess let's say it was really good, but the things I got from it were kind of like, hey, look at game film, figure out the things you need to fix. And then there was kind of a point that's like, make drills out of it that are kind of, there's like a system around it. And then there was kind of a mention as well of like, hey, maybe D points get 1 point and they win, O get 3. Is there other systems you discovered to build? I want to call them like games, right? Where it's kind of like, rewards or whatever, that you're like, these work really well. Here's the kind of, when I'm building sort of ad hoc drills, you're kind of like, here's the systems I noticed work well, rather than just scoring asymmetries.
Yeah, see, I guess, I think one of the things from the very beginning is like, yeah, watching the film and like, for a basic thing, like, if I have like, I don't want to make drills too complicated, usually like 2 to 4 people involved at first. And a lot of times I try to like add 1 person at a time. So like I did a drill progression working on like horizontal resets into flow with my college team yesterday, and we started with the 3 handlers and the rail, and we talked about how to get the disc to the other side of the field. Then we added 1 cutter, and then we added the next cutter, and then the other cutter. So like we're trying to kind of figure out our like, what's our plan A, what's our foundation, and like once we all understand like our plan A and foundation, then we can also learn fun things of like, how can we break the rules that are within the scope that we're looking for. I think others are trying to come up with drills like, okay, if we're allowed to break the rules in these ways, are there other ways that we can also replicate that? So it's not just like, oh, it's the only point we're gonna huck and throw it as far as we can, and instead like can we still play within the system or exaggerated system? I'm like not someone who really is into following rules exactly. Some teams have been very successful with having very strict rules and everyone understanding what that is. The other thing I was gonna say, sorry, I feel like this kind of answers your question, but the other thing is like, I think there's a lot of specific like drills or pieces that we could like dive into, but the other thing I just wanted to volunteer, like as a full-time Dis Northwest staff, and this is something that creating drills and practice plans over like things that we see but we don't know how to like do that is like one of my favorite things to do. So also the other thing is if people have specific things that you like really want to work on or you see but you don't know how to create it into a drill, like please email me and like I would be happy to set up like a Zoom call or come to your practice. I know there's a few people here that I've been able to come to their practices, and I feel like being able to like talk through those kind of things like for your specific situation is something that I like really love to do. I like love to break down what's happening and trying to create drills and practice plans and things like that.
I will say there's this Irish coach in French. He wrote a book, an ebook on like 30 modified games, constraints that you can apply to drills, and you can apply them however you want, but it's sort of more like, okay, mini game, here's a constraint, it might be point related, might be something that, whatever you're trying to work on, right? And you can apply those and have it, be a game-like situation that might help. I think that you were asking.
Yeah, it was both too, like having it from drill to game and then.
Yeah, sometimes we've done like points equal like in-zone reps, like opportunities. So you like might have the score be 3-2, but like maybe one team did what you were working on 5 times. So then after the scrimmage, they get an extra 5 in-zone reps. And maybe the other team scored 3 and technically won the scrimmage, but didn't actually do any of the things that you had been working on. So they don't get any extra in-zone reps. And then at the end of that, those in-zone reps, then whoever actually wins based on whatever. But a lot of ways that I figured out ones that I like is I try a bunch of things, and sometimes they don't work out at all, or it's way too complicated, and people can't keep track of what is actually supposed to be happening. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do that again. So I think that's the thing is like, don't be afraid to just like try something, come up with something, ask your teammates, if you're coaching youth, I don't know, ask them what they think, and give them an opportunity to also come up with a point system. So that also might have more buy-in. If the people that you're coaching or captaining have good ideas and you use them, that can like be something that's like really, combining, like team culture building. But yeah, I've come up with a lot of bad ones. And I've come up with some good ones too. Okay, any other questions? Okay, good. We're gonna give people it is 4:31. Jimmy's gonna start at 4:45, so everyone has 14 minutes to, remember the block, go to the bathroom. The bathroom is out this silver or gray door that's right behind this wall to the left. And we'll come back here, in 14 minutes. Great, thanks. Can you turn off that camera for like 14 minutes and then we'll turn back on? And then, do you know how to now Jimmy is gonna go up next. I don't know if that has enough battery. I know there's an extra mic.
There is enough battery. But yeah, it's like just